the Pre-Med Year, session number 208. Hello and welcome to the two-time Academy Award-nominated podcast, The Pre-Med Years, where we believe that collaboration, not competition, is key to your success. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Gray, and in this podcast, we share with you stories, encouragement, and information that you need to know to help guide you on your path to becoming a physician. I should have had the sound effects wound up in like balloons and confetti falling and celebration because we have a new president. Oh wait, no, not because of that. Because we're celebrating 4 years of this podcast here.
Woo woo.
Hi, Allison.
Hi, Ryan. Hi, everybody.
Where have you been?
In Colorado, where we live.
Yes, you have been there.
I've been doing stuff. You've been doing stuff.
Yeah, I haven't been letting you on the podcast.
No, you've had too many other important people on.
Every week you're like, Ryan, can I come on the podcast? And I'm like, nope. My audience doesn't like when you're on.
Nice. Thanks. Thank you. Well, hope you're all doing well out there.
Everybody's doing great. Everybody's doing great. You know why they're doing great? I hope they're doing great because they've been listening to this podcast for 4 years.
Nice. That's pretty awesome. 4 years. Who would have thunk it?
Not me. It's crazy.
It is.
It could be like 4.5 years if I would have grown the courage to release those initial episodes that I'd recorded and then never did anything with for a while.
It's okay. It happened as it happened.
It did.
Yeah.
Anyway, 4 years. I wanted to thank you listening right now for taking the time every week, if not every week, however often you listen. I want to thank you for taking that time to turn on your phone, your computer, put on your headphones, blast the radio in your car, and listen to me every week, and sometimes Allison.
Yeah.
Share our wisdom, share our knowledge and encouragement and motivation to help you on the path. One of the things that I wanted to do to celebrate the 4th anniversary of this podcast was to give away some coaching and some mock interview prep and some other stuff. And so I want to mention one person on here that is going to win pre-med coaching with me for their application cycle. And that means I'm going to work with them getting their letters of rec settled, their extracurricular activities done, their personal statement, to do some mock interview prep, all their secondary essays. I charge a good amount of money for this. It's a lot of work, and the students that I've been working with have had a lot of success. It's $250 a month right now as I'm recording this. It'll probably go up in the near future. So it's not a cheap thing that we're giving away here, and I'm excited to announce Anella Bird as the winner of that. I will email you, Anella.
Congrats.
If I haven't already emailed you as you're listening to this, I will email you. And I used a random number generator to select the winners, and I will be emailing other people that won some of the bigger packages like mock interview prep with me and some other things. Everybody that registered, I'm going to send you a copy of my book just to say thank you for entering to win. So everybody will get an email from me. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I loved reading. One of the questions, if you didn't enter to win the contest, that's okay. One of the questions on the contest was, why do you listen? And I loved reading all of those reasons. It was pretty great. So thank you for everybody who did that. Thank you, Anella. She won this grand prize, but she was also the first person to enter too. So that was kind of cool.
Cool. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. I don't know what you call it. Game contest. Yeah.
The contest. All right. So I made a little joke at the beginning celebrating that we have a new president and that the confetti's falling. Now, likely half of you are mad about our new president and half of you are ecstatic about our new president. That's just the way it works, I think, every election cycle. This election cycle obviously seemed to be more polarizing than the rest. We're not going to talk politics here, but I want to talk, Allison, to you about the future of healthcare and what pre-med students, obviously the person listening to this right now, likely a pre-med student, what they should be thinking about, if anything, about the future of medicine and what Trump's new policies are going to come into play. He talked a lot about repealing Obamacare. It's like the first thing he was going to do was get rid of Obamacare. It sounds like he's kind of backpedaling on that a little bit. Does this matter?
Yeah, I mean, so it definitely matters. And I think, I mean, as a physician, I have concerns about just when I think about all the people who I think did acquire health insurance who were not previously insured and now are at risk of losing that. I actually have some family friends who are at risk of losing their insurance because they only got insurance because of Obamacare. So I think as a citizen, as a person, I think that's very concerning, and as a physician. But I think at the end of the day, if you're a pre-med out there, I think the most important thing really is to stay informed about it all, to try to keep your ear to the ground and just keep informed so that when you do show up at an interview and someone asks you, what do you think about like Ryan's question, what do you think about the future of Obamacare possibly being repealed? And so that you don't kind of sit there like a deer in headlights. Whether or not that should change your course, change your life, change your dreams, your ambitions, that I don't think so. That's not what doctoring is about. Doctoring is about healing, is about providing service, is about trying to make the world a better place one person at a time. It's not about health policy per se. And now it depends. If you want to become a physician and devote your career to health policy, that's a totally different matter. But if you're out there as a pre-med wanting to become a physician to practice medicine, to be involved in clinical medicine, then this election and the results and everything that is happening, as kind of crazy and polarizing as it all is, I don't think should change your course, your dream.
It's funny, on Facebook, I'm in a bunch of physician groups, and one of them, somebody posted, I think the day after the election, like, now that Trump is in and Obamacare is likely done, what's next? And then I commented in my normal kind of snarky way. I said, we go to work like always. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yes, politics will always change, and there'll be Republicans and Democrats and independents. And, it's, I don't know, it's kind of funny, Ryan, because when you talk about being in the military or previously being in the military, you've said in the past that, you sort of have to just respect whomever is your president anyway, because they're your commander in chief. So it's kind of a little bit the same in that if you're going to be a doctor or you already are a doctor, you're going to need to be doing the same thing. You may have different constraints and different rules and different regulations imposed upon you. The face of healthcare may change again, but that's the time we live in. Things are changing, and it's very broken. The system we live in anyway. So if it's going to change, I don't know. Maybe it'll be better. I don't know. Again, we're not going to get political, but
what do you mean by that? It's broken.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things that don't work. There are a lot of people that still don't have health insurance. Our healthcare system is extremely expensive. We spend trillions of dollars on things that we probably shouldn't. And the funny thing is we're like 35th in the world for how healthy we are as a population of people. So there are a lot of things that, even though we spend a ton of money on healthcare, we're not doing necessarily very well.
And good fast food.
Right. We add sugar to all our food. That keeps people really healthy. So we, and the whole, just the way the insurance works in this country with denying things and physicians having to fight to get the care that they need for their patients. There are a lot of things in our system that just don't work. And so, again, this is just going to be, I think, another big change. And we don't know yet what's going to happen. He may repeal all of it. He may try to get rid of some of it. Who knows, really? But I think, again, my opinion about it all is that as a pre-med, the goal is that you stay informed, that you try to just be aware of what's going on so that you can at least give an opinion about it or speak knowledgeably to some degree about it. When I was a pre-med, essentially that's what I tried to do. I tried to just learn what I could about what was going on so that if I was asked about it, I could give a reasonable opinion. But other than that,
I'd be interested to know if anyone listening went into medicine because of Obamacare and now is thinking, oh, never mind, I don't want to do it now that Obamacare is probably gone.
Well, and that would be sad, but that would make me wonder about what was their reasoning in the first place? Like, why would you go into medicine because of Obamacare? Maybe they had some sort of very personal story that affected their family, and But again, it's politics, it's policy, it's not the practice of medicine. Does it affect us? Yes. Should we be informed about it? Absolutely. And I've been getting emails from the American Academy of Neurology and the American Medical Association, and people talking about how they're going to lobby for X, Y, and Z. But I, quite frankly, don't have time also to get bogged down in all of that. I have a lot of work to do every day taking care of patients. And so if I spent all my time getting wrapped up in the politics of it all, I'd lose my focus and I wouldn't be able to do a good job.
So talk a little bit about this election cycle, being a physician and having obviously your own thoughts and opinions about who's running and what's happening, but having to temper that with patients coming in and their opinions and thoughts. How do you juggle all of that?
Well, one of the interesting things about this election in particular is the amount of anxiety, I think, and change in mood that a lot of people have had. And there was even something I read recently about the burden on, if you want to use that word, or the challenge or the burden on psychologists and psychiatrists in the last few months with patients coming in being really, really upset and anxious and upset again about what has been going on with the election. And it was a pretty nasty election, too. There was a lot that I think on both sides made all of us very upset. And so probably my guess is that the psychiatrists and psychologists sort of inherited the worst of it. But I had patients come in and talk about just sort of freely how upset they were about it. I had one woman tell me that her anxiety was up and her blood pressure was elevated that morning, probably because, quote, a Nazi was running for president. Then
her words, not yours.
Correct. And then a few days later, we had somebody walk in with a big red hat saying "Make America Great Again." And so you see these things, and some people are very vocal and very strongly opinionated about it. But at the end of the day, it's like anything else. You can't let any of that get in the way. And I personally don't think there's any point or reason to get involved in any kind of political discussion with a patient. It's not why we're here. And it's not the focus. And I think you also don't want to do anything, I think, that's going to detract from really what you're trying to do for that patient, which is, again, to provide good care for them, to help with healing. If you get into an argument with them, that's going to be a really big problem, and they may complain about you to the people you work for. It's just not. It's like with family, you don't talk about politics. I don't think it's a wise thing to talk politics with your patients. I mean, unless it's somebody that you've been taking care of for 20 years and you both know that you're both staunch liberals or you're both staunch conservatives or something like that, and you enjoy that part. That's part of your rapport with the patient. But for most people, especially people you've not really met before, getting into a political discussion with them, probably not a good idea.
Yeah. So you work in a large healthcare organization. During an election cycle like this, how much is coming down from the top to inform you about candidates' policies and what you should be thinking about and other things like that?
Well, the most interesting thing, I think, in Colorado has been more about some of the ballot questions. And for example, we in Colorado just voted on whether physicians should have, or excuse me, not physicians, whether patients should have the right to die, to ask a physician to help them end their life if they have a terminal illness. And that actually won. So that's going to be a change. And there was another big thing. What was the other big one? Oh, of course. Right. So there was, Colorado was up on the ballot for being the first state in the country to have a single payer healthcare system. And so the healthcare organization that I work for gave us sort of information about their position so that if any patients asked about it, they could say, this is our position and that's that. But I think in general, they wanted people to kind of stay out of it, kind of inform people if they had questions, but not really, again, get into big political arguments or discussions with people, because that's not what we're here for. That's not our purpose. That's sort of what I did. I sort of just, did what I did every day. Just like Ryan said, you just go to work, just try to do the best job you can do.
So every day you go to work behind closed doors. And I've talked about this before, that behind closed doors, no matter who's paying the bill, if it's Medicare, Medicaid, a big HMO, private health insurance, whatever it is, behind that closed door, it's a relationship with a patient, and that will never change.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. And you shouldn't let your political, that's the other problem. Let's say you get into a political argument with a patient, then, that could bias your care. It could bias your ability to provide good care. And that's terrible. That's really not a good thing at all.
That was in the news this past election cycle.
Was it?
Depending on your political views, you practice medicine differently.
Well, and that's fine. But if in individual patient interaction, if you allow your political, what's the word I'm looking for? Tendencies, political beliefs to interfere with the care of that patient, that would be terrible. In the same way that if you,
well, it's like when I was working as an intern and taking care of prisoners, that person in front of you is not a prisoner; they're your patient.
Right. Absolutely. It's we're called to do a job that is different than other jobs. And it's not like at a business where you can, turn somebody away and say, we're not going to provide service here for you. You can't do that. And I think it is a disservice to yourself if you start to get all invested in talking about somebody's, their politics, their race, their background, their religion. That's the opposite of what you want to do. You want to remove all of that and look at them as an individual that is just like yourself that needs help. And so that's what I try to do. I just don't go there. I just don't think it's wise. And that's me. I have a different way maybe of practicing than other people, but I think that I don't know. And I try to just, if somebody brings it up, I'm not going to just shut them out or close the door in their face, but I sort of just listen and smile and nod, and maybe I'll kind of agree with them even if I sort of don't agree at all, but I'll try to just move things along, because I think that's what you need to do. So if any of you out there are physicians or maybe you're nurses or PAs and nurse practitioners, or you're an MA, I'd be interested to hear what your perspective is when you're in a room with a patient and they get into a political discussion with you. But I think
you stick your fingers in your ears and go la 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 la.
Yeah, no, that's not appropriate either. But yeah, it's been very interesting. It's been emotional. I mean, even just the day after, going in after election night into the office, and one of my colleagues, his daughter, who's 7, had been crying that morning, and he was trying to console her. And I think it affected a lot of us just as people, and it's hard to sometimes shut that out and just continue your job as always, but that's what you got to do.
So have you looked into what it would take to be a physician in Canada?
No, because I know that when I was a student there as an undergrad, it's not the easiest life for physicians in Canada either. Socialized medicine has its issues as well. And I was a patient there too. I remember I sprained my knee in Canada when I was up skiing there, and I waited like 7.5 hours in the ER to be seen by someone, which was pretty
normal.
Yeah, I know, but it was pretty brutal. I mean, and I remember talking to, right, that's a small deal, but I remember talking to friends of mine who talked about how they were paying for their neighbor's healthcare as part of the way the system worked, and it's very different. And they talked about how it wasn't perfect, and they had to wait sometimes many, 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 many months to receive care, whereas here it probably would not be the same.
Yeah, how bitter would you be if like your neighbor was dying of lung cancer, living with lung cancer, and was smoking and had liver cirrhosis and was drinking, and you're like, that's my money paying for you. But it's not much different here with Medicare and Medicaid. Our tax dollars pay a lot of healthcare.
They do. But people are going to get sick because of decisions they make, and people are going to get sick because of bad luck. And yeah, it's just the way the world works.
So
physicians don't get paid very well in Canada too, from my recollection.
yeah,
But yeah.
with the election now over, and we're yet to see what will come of Trump's policies and what he will do to the Affordable Care Act and everything in healthcare moving forward. And even it's in the news that they want to get rid of Medicare and Medicaid. That
Whoa, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
anything is possible.
Wow.
when you control
Medicare is a beast. And
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, oh wow. I didn't know that.
I think it's been on Paul Ryan's to-do list for a long
to
time.
get rid of Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
What does he want to do instead?
I don't know.
I need to see. I need to
Yeah.
become more informed. I need to
Yeah.
read. I'm trying to read every day, but it's a little. It's a little much.
Let's make that another talking point. The fact that what we're saying here is not we're saying that for you, the pre-med, what happens doesn't matter. We're not telling you that you shouldn't be informed and you shouldn't have an opinion, and that you shouldn't be active and try to get out there and be an activist or just get your voice heard. That doesn't mean you hide in the corner and don't say anything. You can be active and get political and all of that stuff. But what we're saying is, no matter what happens, if you're going into this for the right reasons, then it doesn't matter what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, talking about what happens, with what just happened, where do you see, if you had a crystal ball, what's going to happen in 10 years?
Oh dear. I don't know. Like in general,
With healthcare.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, people have been talking for years about there'll be some kind of breaking point at which time we are just not going to be able to, what we are doing now will be untenable. It will just not, we won't have enough money to support what we're doing. Something will break. The system will there'll be some straw that finally breaks the camel's back. I don't know. The thing is that hospitals have also been really consolidating and sort of becoming big monsters themselves. And the tiny little private practices that is becoming a thing of the past. Everybody's getting into these big groups. So I don't know. I mean, I think that it's changed a lot already. If you look back, my parents' physician, he was in practice in the same office in the same location, maybe with like a move down the street or something, but for 40 years. That is not something you're seeing either. People are changing jobs, they're changing what they're doing, and it's just a changing landscape. I don't know, Ryan. I don't know how to answer that question. I think
let me ask it a different way. Are you worried about being a physician now?
No, because, and here's the interesting thing about that. Being a physician is so much a part of my identity that I know that no matter what happens, I will be a doctor, and I will find a way to practice medicine. I will find a way to provide care for other people, to practice neurology. And if that ends up looking really different than what I'm doing now, I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, I went into medicine. I became a physician to provide care for other people, to make a difference in the world, to make a difference in people's lives. So I'm committed to doing that for the rest of my life or until I retire. But I think that that's the thing. It's being a physician. I really do consider it as a part of my identity, as a part of who I am. And so to me, you can't lose that. It's not something that can break away from you, even if the construct of everything around you changes, because it's part of who you are. So do I worry about it? No, I worry more about how things are going to change in the world. I worry about foreign policy and our interactions with other nations in the world. And I worry about what things will look like for my daughter growing up, and what schools will be like for her. And but I don't worry about, gosh, am I going to be able to practice, or is medicine just going to go to hell in a handbasket? No, we'll find a way. We always have. We will find a way. If you think about like the zombie apocalypse, if that happened, I mean, physicians would still find a way. They would have to take care of people who may have gotten their faces eaten off, but they would find a way. So it's kind of interesting. I don't worry about that aspect of it. Maybe I should, but I don't.
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, I don't practice. I don't.
Well, but if you think about just what it what it means to be a physician. I mean, do you worry about I don't know.
So one of the things that doesn't necessarily worry me, but I think is a huge landscape shifter, is technology. So outside of politics, I think technology is becoming a huge part of our environment. And
You think we're going to be on Star Trek with like the tricorders and
with
they're
a
going to
tricorder and like one little pass over your body, it's like, all right, here's what I know what's wrong with you.
Loved that in Star Trek the other night we won't spoil the movie, but we watched Star Trek Beyond finally, and there's the scene where the guy like holds up this big screen in front of, this guy who's on the ground. I think it was Spock. Anyway, sorry if you haven't seen it. Anyway, he's holding it up and it says like critical alert, and anyway, it's Ryan's like, that's so cool.
Yeah, tech is interesting. And I've had this discussion when I was at the UC Davis conference with students interested in going into radiology. I said, I would be very careful thinking about radiology as a field right now, because we're getting to a point with computers and with artificial intelligence that computers are going to be able to read x-rays and read CT scans and read MRIs. Yeah, it's happening now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little alarming if you're a radiologist, I would imagine.
Yeah. Obviously, for interventional radiology, you're interacting with the patient and doing procedures. That's different. But for just sitting in a room and staring at a screen, I would much rather trust a computer than a human's eyes.
True. I don't think, this is my belief, I don't think artificial intelligence will ever be able to replace a diagnostician.
No. I'm talking about radiology.
Yeah.
I'm talking about maybe anesthesia, because that's
what about surgery?
Surgery, no, because you'll have a human controlling the robots, and we already have robots. We have Da Vinci in the operating room, which is awesome to watch. But I think we have Watson, right? Watson is all over TV with commercials about reading medical reports and reading medical charts for patients and going, okay, here's my differential. But it's a physician that is interacting with the patient and asking those key questions. Yes. At this point, a computer can't do that and interpret what the patient is saying, how they're saying it, and
teasing out those key things absolutely.
I think computers will be by our sides as we move forward as physicians, and we'll use them and utilize them. I think medical education will change dramatically because we're not going to need to know everything that's being taught nowadays. We'll have a computer for that.
Interesting.
It's going to be a lot more of the humanity side of interacting with a patient, and not necessarily the book smarts of knowing everything, because we'll have Google right there.
Well, and you think they won't use cadavers anymore, and they'll go to all computerized.
Well, cadavers is important. You need to know that anatomy, and I don't think a computer program or a sim lab will ever replace that experience.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. Well, it's interesting. I think something will change ultimately with electronic medical records, because I think that the demand on physicians now is so intense. Not to scare any of you out there, but the thing that most physicians gripe about nowadays is the amount of time it takes to chart. And so these EMRs, these electronic medical records that were supposed to make things faster and easier, they have in some ways. But the thing that a lot of my friends who are physicians talk about is that after they put their kids to bed at night, they're up doing their notes and charting and doing things in the electronic medical record. And I certainly have done that myself. And so at some point, I think as patients can email us and call us and read their notes that we're writing and ask us questions about that, and we have to write our notes all day and then into the night, I think that will eventually change. I don't know how, but I think that the pressure on physicians will just sort of almost demand that it will change. Again, I just try to do my job one goldfish at a time, because there's no other way. And I think if you get wrapped up in woe is me and, oh, this is hard and this could be better, and oh my God, I'm worried about the future, and you lose sight of what you need to do here and now. So
looking back at your journey, has there been one book out there that has helped shape some of your thinking with patient interaction and humanities and anything like that?
There's a book that I read in medical school called The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down, which I think is phenomenal. And I do think about that from time to time. It's a book about a family who they have a daughter who has bad epilepsy. She has really, really bad seizures. And because of the almost insurmountable language barrier that they have, the family and the clinicians taking care of them, it is devastating for the child. And it's just, it's a page turner. You can't put it down. And it's really, it's humbling. It's sort of humbling to see how much these physicians want to help this family and this child, and how much that language barrier and that cultural barrier gets in the way. And I think about that sometimes when I'm seeing my patients who are there with interpreters, and asking myself, are you missing things? Are you really getting it? We have the same amount of time afforded for a visit with someone who speaks English and a visit with someone who doesn't, and with a translator. And I wonder also whether that's appropriate, because I think that you need more time. So that was a great book that I loved, and I think was just really a great read, and really important to think about, because as a physician, you will be taking care of people of all backgrounds and languages, and the decisions that you make can really, really affect what happens. So that's a good one. What about you?
A book. I have a
stumped yourself.
I have a terrible memory for that kind of stuff. I don't know. Well.
Oh, well, what about Atul Gawande's books? Those have been phenomenal.
All of Atul Gawande's books. And then I finally just read the Paul Farmer book, The Mountains Beyond Mountains.
Oh, I've wanted to read that. I haven't read that yet.
No,
yeah.
That was a great book.
Yeah.
Very interesting, amazing, phenomenal doctor dude that just...
Phenomenal doctor dude. Can we hashtag that?
Hashtag phenomenal doctor dude. Yeah, that just... his level of compassion and empathy and drive and motivation just makes us look like puny little ants.
Wow.
Yeah. It's incredible.
I need to read that.
All right. So I need your prognosis. Where will this podcast be in 4 years?
Like, where is he going with this? Where will this podcast be? Right here, Ryan Gray. It will be here in 8 years, you said?
Well, 4 years. Another 4 years.
Another 4 years. Oh, right. So 8 years total. Yeah. You'll be at, what episode will that be? I'm terrible with math.
Well, this is 208 times 2 is 416.
Oh, boy. Yes. Gosh, I think you'll be doing this now, what you're doing now. And I think it'll just be more and more and more awesome. And you'll have more things that you're doing with students and more knowledge to bring to bear. And I think you'll have more books. And,
of course, yeah.
And we'll both be older. And maybe, I know what else. I prognosticate that you will have more, it's not the right word at all. I suspect that you will have more equipment and it will be upgraded. Recording
equipment. I don't know. I'm happy with what I have now.
For now.
Anyway.
He's always improving. It's good. He keeps it very good quality.
Okay. Well, it's been an amazing 4 years. Thank you for taking that journey with me, Allison.
Absolutely.
And allowing me to go on that journey.
Absolutely. It's been a blast. I feel like I support you from the background, and I am rooting for all of you out there. Ryan lets me know how things are going, and I get the emails and I see the reviews, and I'm sorry I'm not more involved than I could be, but he's really he's awesome.
You will be involved in a new podcast soon. When we release the Specialty Stories podcast.
Yes, that's exciting. I'm excited
about
that.
We will have an episode about neurology, and you will talk about your life as a neurologist. I have a bunch of interviews lined up for that, so that's exciting. Look forward to that, or look for that in about a month or so as we release this. So sometime end of 2016, beginning of 2017.
That's another thing I expect, that you will have more podcasts as part of MedEd Media. I definitely expect that.
That would be fun.
You're going to need some throat lozenges because you're going to be talking a lot.
Yes, I will. All right. Well, Allison, thank you for joining me.
It was my pleasure, Ryan. Nice to be here.
All right. Well, there you have it. Session 208 is in the books. 4 years of the pre-med years, which used to be known as the Medical School Headquarters podcast or the Medical School HQ podcast, depending on if I was feeling lazy that day. I want to thank you again for joining me every week here and for allowing me to help guide you. Part of the contest that I mentioned earlier was leaving a review in iTunes, and so we have a ton of new reviews and that I want to go through. This first one here is from RE space M. It says, mentors you wish you have at your university. I'm just going to read the titles here and maybe if I pick out a sentence here. It says, thank you very much for all your hard work, and I look forward to listening to your future episodes. Thank you for that one, REM. We have Loza0913. It says, best podcast around for pre-med students. This podcast has some of the best information out there in terms of MCAT, med school, and interviews. Thank you for that one, Loza. We have Joanne Gia. This says, the best podcast ever. I don't know about the best podcast ever. Maybe the best pre-med podcast ever. I think Serial, that first season of Serial was still pretty amazing. So, thank you for that. And let's do 2 more here. We have, it says, Lee fan since 2013. That's his username. It says, close to applying. Been a fan for over 3 years. Love the show. Will be applying in 2017 and hope to use what I have learned from the show to help me get in. That's awesome. All right. And one more here from Non-Trad Pre-Med, my go-to pre-med advisor. And that's the best compliment that we can get is when students say that we are the go-to pre-med advisor. I started this podcast because my pre-med advising was pretty bad, and Allison's pre-med advising at a Canadian school was bad, and I wanted to kill Student Doctor Network, or not kill them, but I wanted to reduce their grip on the pre-med world, and I think I'm doing that slowly but surely. So I love when it says, when a user or a listener says, my go-to pre-med advisor. So thank you for that. All right. If you would like to leave a rating and review, medicalschoolhq.net/iTunes is the place to do that. Thank you again for being here every week for 4 years. Or I guess I've been here every week for 4 years. Maybe you haven't, but thank you for every week that you do join in. If you want to help us out, spread the word. Go tell your classmates. Go tell your friends, your family. Oh, I will tell you, a week or 2 ago, I jumped on a Skype conversation with the University of Houston, their pre-med club. So if you are part of a pre-med club and you would like me to talk to the pre-med club and give a presentation on something or just be there to answer your questions, let me know. Shoot me an email, ryan@medicalschoolhq.net. I love doing that. It's a great way for me to reach a lot of you at one time. So ryan@medicalschoolhq.net. Let me know if you're involved in a pre-med club. Let your pre-med club president know, whoever's in charge of scheduling those meetings. So I would love to help you out there. All right. Have a great week, and I look forward to being here for another 4 years of the Pre-Med Years podcast and all of the podcasts that we're doing at the MedEd Media Network.